go. Can you see the screen? Awesome. All right. So, welcome, boomers. What is up? I'm going to, let's see. Well, actually, I guess it doesn't really matter because I can almost do any song. So, I'll try this one, which is a little different. Welcome to today's installment of Mindset Mastery. Network your way to wealth. 3 secrets to unlocking and rocking your resources. All right, just checking in. Welcome, boomers. So, today we are going to dive into the philosophy of networking your way to wealth. How can you utilize, unlock, and unleash your resources so that you can grow both personally and professionally? Now, here's what I know about you. If you are watching this, you are at the very least a striving boomer. You are in the mindset of giving to get. And believe it or not, that's actually a deep part of the philosophy here in this training here, this networking your way to wealth. So why is this important? I haven't really needed to update any slides here because, I'll be honest with you, things are crazy these days. I'm not sure where you are. I was just speaking with Morrow the other day, and he was sharing, and we're putting a timestamp on it because, as you know, in this boomer experience, each month there'll be new trainings, and this month was a month that I had spoken to Morrow recently, and he is basically sharing that in Canada, the lockdowns and vaccines and all that are going nuts. So it's stands to reason that people are stressed out. This is so important to recognize that while things are burning down around us and people are arguing back and forth, I'm right, you're wrong, I'm right, whatever, right? And then the challenges with the economy, job losses, if we even travel, it's going to be stressed at best. And then, of course, what is our new normal? Now, here's the beauty about being a boomer, being part of this give to get movement, is that we can bypass much of this by understanding the power of what we can control. But here's the truth. When you see all this craziness, here's what we know. Misery loves company, doesn't it? You ever hang out with somebody and all they want to do is tell you their woes, their problems, their challenges, right? They want you to get sucked into their drama, right? But here's the truth. Not only does misery love company, so does success. See, successful people hang out with other successful people. Think about it. And the truth is that these successful people are happy to bring other people on their success train. They are not going to be happy to bring on misery on this. They're going to be bringing positivity, great mindset, forward momentum. So, just a real quick background about me and why I know is that I used to be miserable. I grew up, I was this outcast. I was this stoner. I was called a loser, a metalhead, right? And I hung out with a bunch of dark people, right? And that's how we find ourselves sometimes, being accepted by the wrong crowd. I got kicked out of every high school I attended. This is embarrassing, but true, at least 3. And I fortunately was able to get my high school diploma through the school that I graduated from, which was the one that I actually was originally kicked out of. But the truth is, I always felt misunderstood, yet I always felt like I was destined for more. And I'm going to gather that you too know that there's something inside you. There's something deep, like screaming to come out, that's dying to wake up, that's committed to delivering results, not excuses. And sometimes we just end up getting a little stuck. And you're in the right place if that's the case, because that's what being a boomer is all about. That's what Give to Get is all about. I'm sure by now, if you haven't already, you're going to start diving into the other trainings that are available to you here to help you break free and start creating an incredible life, or an even more incredible life. Full disclosure, I've also been married. I am once divorced, and I am now married to my soulmate, but I had to reinvent and start over in every way. I've had multiple careers and, well, fortunately, not multiple marriages, just the second one, and this is my permanent. Now, why me? Why listen to me? And again, I'm not doing any of this to impress you. It's really just to impress upon you what's possible. I grew up being a loser. I was always pissed off or depressed, got into drugs and all this crazy stuff at a young age, to turn my life around, to become mentored and on the road with the great Tony Robbins, shared the stage with Les Brown. There's my gorgeous wife, brilliant wife, Heidi, with Tony as well at the premiere of his I'm Not Your Guru. There's blessed to work with my wife. We do events together, right? My first career was in the music industry. So here I am with Nile Rodgers, Dee Snider, the band Hanson, MMMBop fame, if you remember. Here I'm with Skid Row's Sebastian Bach and TNT's Tony Harnell. We all share the same vocal coach, as does Tony. There's Alice Cooper, Nico McBrain, Tico Torres. I sang with them. And just I'm sharing all this with you because, it's possible to turn things around when you're at your worst. And there I am with our beautiful family and having this blessed life. Now, why is it so important? I'm just sharing it with you. If you're ever feeling down, feeling like you're stuck, like you've got to reinvent, you don't know what's next, I've been there. I get it. And it's possible. And I'll tell you what I'm going to share with you in this brief time we have together will be a game changer should you take it to heart and, more importantly, apply it. So, secret number one, or lesson number one here, success leaves clues. And that was a phrase that Tony Robbins had made very popular, and little behind the scenes. He was one of the first people to bring neurolinguistic programming, of which I'm a master practitioner and trainer of, neurolinguistic programming to the masses. And neurolinguistic programming is a powerful, powerful communications technology. But in NLP, there's a presupposition here that says if one person has accomplished something, any person can accomplish the same thing through modeling. Now, essentially, if you model what it is that we talk about today, if you go back and you watch the other trainings with all of the other amazing coaches that are part of the Boomerang Nation here, is that you will find opportunities to model if you're willing to unpack them.
On a scale of 1 to 5, would you give yourself a 5 on achieving what you want in life? If your answer is anything less than a 5, right now, I have something awesome for you. Achieving your goals and living your life at a 5 isn't easy. Most people aren't prepared to focus, stay disciplined, and do the everyday work that is necessary to achieve amazing results. But since you're watching this, then I'm guessing that you're not one of those people. And this is an opportunity that will change your life. Give to Get is a global program that brings together world-class coaching and combines it with empowering masterminds and networking opportunities. We provide 5-star guidance for the price of a cup of coffee a day. To find out more, click on the link in the description of this coaching session.
So if I am to sort of do full disclosure, I had to model the most successful people. When I was doing music as my first modeling opportunity, well, I shouldn't say that. We all modeled someone, didn't we? I could actually go back further. I modeled drug use. I found someone who was doing drugs and I said, how do you do that? And that was not a good model, right? So no, that modeling happens no matter what. Now you decide what it is you want to accomplish and model it. So then I said, okay, well, I can model. So let me look into, I wanted to work in the music business. I was an artist, I was a singer, I had a band, and nothing was working out the way I wanted to. And my dad would have afforded me college. And I went to one day of regular college and I didn't agree with it at all, and I left. And then I looked into going into music college. Maybe there was some schools on Long Island. There's Five Towns. There's a school in Orlando called Full Sail that taught production and engineering. And I said, oh, I could do that. Or as I did my due diligence, what I learned was the most successful people in music didn't go to school for it. They just did it. And it's interesting. If you look at entrepreneurship, entrepreneurs don't usually go to school to learn entrepreneurship. They start a business and they model other entrepreneurs. So you're in the right place. So what did I do? I went and I got this gig at a studio that was on Long Island where I grew up. And I just knocked on the door and I said, look, I will work here for nothing until you pay me. Now, why would I do that? Well, I knew that if I was able to spend time in the studio, I would learn from the masters. And this studio was a big studio on Long Island. They were the people who were working there were they were responsible for, one of them discovered Taylor Dane. We were doing some big records. The records that were coming out of there were all high level, big multi-platinum records. So I knew that if I was able to work there, that I would learn from the masters. So I worked there as an intern. What does that mean? I was not paid, and I would get there at 10 a.m. and I would intern, which basically meant get coffee, get lunch, cut tape, drive people to pick them up from the train station, drive a tape to another studio, basically be a gopher, do anything that anybody wanted and not get paid for it. Now, when I went in there, I had also learned that the most successful people who even went to school ended up having to intern anyway. So I said, why bother going to school? I'm just going to intern. Seems like that's the fastest path. So success leaves clues, modeled the most successful. So what happened was, because I was willing to invest in myself, I lived off of credit cards essentially for that time. I was able to start learning from the masters. I was learning from the best of the best how to make great records. And what happened was I was able to work my way up to a point where I started getting paid. And then ultimately I became a staff producer in this organization where we were winning Grammys with Celine Dion and J-Lo and the Chicago soundtrack. And then I moved on to another place where we won some Emmys doing some children's shows and that kind of thing. So what I'm sharing with you, and then also toured as a music director with a couple of bands that I had produced. But what I'm sharing with you is that when you model the most successful people, you learn what they do. What is their mindset? Now, just in full disclosure, peak of my career, dating myself, is when Napster came out. And that was the technology that allowed peer-to-peer sharing of information and songs and music. So what happened was record sales dropped as sharing increased, and we had to reinvent. The industry was shaken to its core. The technology that also allowed Napster and LimeWire and all these peer-to-peer sharing experiences also created the digital technology and digital recording like Pro Tools and Logic and all these different applications that made recording possible in just a computer instead of needing all of that big gear and the consoles and all of that. So I had to reinvent. Who did I model? Well, while on that journey, I was like, this has been really good. I'm now hanging with the best of the best in the music industry. And then I went to a Tony Robbins event. And I was like, oh my gosh. Now, by the way, I applied what Tony taught. And when I was 17 years old, that's when I started getting into Tony Robbins anyway. So then I was like, I went to an event. I was like, this is amazing. This is better than doing a concert. This is education and entertainment. So I said, this is what I want to do. I said, oh, well, if I want to do that, who's the best? Tony Robbins. So long story short, by putting myself in the right environment, by willing to get uncomfortable, by stretching myself, by thinking big, by thinking beyond what might be like possible for some, which I believe nothing is impossible for anybody, but some people have a box and they go, oh, I don't know if that's possible. Some people may have thought, you have no experience at all. How do in anything but music, you have no college degree, you have none of that. You're going to go work with Tony Robbins? It's like, yes, I am. And I did. Long story short, when we get to know each other more, I'll share that story in depth on how I ended up getting that gig. But suffice it to say, it was through networking. So I put myself in this environment where I was able to go on the road with Tony Robbins and be personally trained by Tony. Right? Why? Because I wanted to accomplish what he wanted to accomplish. Now, after doing that, shifted to working in behavioral health, got recruited to bring personal development to behavioral health. Well, who do we master there? Well, I'm going to model. We basically modeled the most successful people in the recovery world as we brought personal development in. I'm also a real estate investor. So what do? I model the most successful real estate investors, find out what they're doing, and then do what they do. So just we want to be breaking into that idea of success leaves clues and understand that if one person has accomplished something you want to, anyone can accomplish it, including yourself. So, why is this important? Well, let's get some clarity. Answer this question. What do you want to accomplish? What is it that you want to experience in your life? What do you want to accomplish? What do you want to get done? What is your legacy that you want to leave? And get really clear on that. What do you want to accomplish? And then who is getting the results that you want? Think about it. You know now what you want to accomplish and go, well, who's already accomplishing it? Now, here's the thing. They may be alive. They may be dead. If they're dead, they probably wrote something. They wrote a book. Maybe someone wrote a book about them, maybe did a biography on them. There's so much information available to them. But the truth is that there are hundreds and thousands and millions of people around us right now that are accomplishing the results that we want. And all we need to do is start modeling them. And then go, where are they? Where are they hanging? For me, when I'm looking at real estate, they're hanging at RIAs, real estate investment associations. That's where they hang out. When it's like personal development, I go to personal development events. I speak at personal development events. And when I go to an event, the first thing I do is, if I'm not one of the speakers, I go up and I meet every one of the speakers and I connect with them and I start learning and building a relationship with them. And that will be secret number 2. Truly successful people love to share their wisdom. It's true. If you think about it, the most successful people always seem to end up writing books or having trainings or sharing their success formula in some fashion or form. Why? Because they truly enjoy it. So if I look back again at my extraordinarily blessed career in my music career, I had the gift of being the co-produced the second Widowmaker record. And Widowmaker was the band that Dee Snider created after the second band after Twisted Sister. It was Desperado and then Widowmaker. And Dee would share with me all of his ins and outs and his ups and downs and how he got to where he is and where he was at when he was, what his mindset was when he was at his top and how that impacted him negatively and how that he lost everything and had to rise back up. The chief engineer there, I'm still great friends with today after like 30 years, loved to share all of his strategies and his ideas and his successes. And he would mentor me and share with me all of these brilliant ideas that he learned from other people, the people that shared with him. I would work with other producers and build these relationships with them and be able to query them and say, hey, well, how are you doing this? And why do you do that? Now, sometimes you do need to pay for these experiences. Why? Because while these people do want to share their information, they also want to know you have some skin in the game. So hiring people oftentimes will speed this process up. But then there are other opportunities. I became friends with the guy who was the money behind the Backstreet Boys. He was the money behind Lou Pearlman. He loved just sharing with me his rite of passages, all of the challenges that he has, building his banks and, the different businesses that he had. There was nothing that brought him more joy. You could just tell that he loved just sharing this because I was genuinely interested and I would apply what it was that he would share. Remember with Eric, he was building a company and he wanted to take it public and he needed to raise some extra money. And he was like, if you want to, do that, you want to raise some money, here's an opportunity for you. And I did. And I was able to raise close to $800,000 for this opportunity. And that just showed me applying what he was teaching me. And it was very exciting for him. Obviously, Tony Robbins. Tony Robbins does not need to work and probably has not needed to work a day in his life since probably the last 25 years. He's been completely financially free for this entire time. He still does what he does to give back because he loves to share his wisdom. Now, as a matter of fact, I share this with you, and I know this to be true because I created this show called The Real Deal on Success. If you go to therealdealon.com, you'll be able to access all of these. As a matter of fact, these are all now friends of mine through some I already knew and some I became friends during the process of figuring out how to help people learn how to be successful. Because successful people love to share their wisdom. So there's my wife and I we interviewed James Arthur Ray and his wife Bear. This is Julio Gonzalez. He's like the number one tax expert in cost segregation on the planet. He's the guy who helped write the Trump tax plan. Whether you like him or not, they did well for almost everybody. Marshall Silver, one of the most incredible hypnotists and seminar guys. Amazing. I should have a call with him this week. Dee Snider, as you know, shared that earlier. Murray Sawchuk, who's an incredible comedian and magician. Walter Amarello, which you may have already met here. Craig Shoemaker, incredible comedian. David Meerman Scott, he's a marketing guru. Richie Canado is a saxophone. So the list goes on. There's so many more. There's like 80 interviews to date. They love sharing their successes. And all we need to do is reach out to them. So question, who can you connect with and build a relationship? Maybe it would be a good time to jot down, grab a pen and paper and write down who are some of the people you would like to model. Who are some people who are getting the results that you would like to get? Is it maybe growing your Boomer account, building that business? Is it looking to enhance your relationship? Is it maybe growing your business, increasing your sales, growing your real estate business? And then look at who can you connect with that is getting the results that you aspire to. One of the base philosophies I've lived my life, around is surround yourself with people whose normal is what you aspire to. Surround yourself with people whose normal is what you aspire to. This is a game-changing philosophy because if you're hanging out with people who are operating up here, and forgive my voice, I've got the COVID. If you've got people up here operating a certain way, and you're over here, what'll happen is you will naturally start to elevate in order to hang with them. You're going to have to start raising your standard of a mindset, your standard of belief, of value. It's vital that you recognize that the people you spend the most time with is what you're going to become. So if you want to become more, obviously you have to take personal responsibility and be more and do more. The way you speed that process up is by hanging out with people who are getting the results that you aspire to as their normal. And you'll notice that they have particularly different mindsets about everything that they do. You'll notice what's a priority to them, what their standards are, what they will accept, what they won't accept. And as you build a relationship with them, you'll learn even more. And then you want to be clear as what it is specifically you want to learn from them. Now, it's okay to be somewhat open, to be sure, because I remember when I was struggling, I was figuring and having to reinvent myself with the whole music career. And I shared with you Eric, the gentleman who was the money behind the Backstreet Boys. When I reached out to him, I was just lost. I didn't know what I wanted to do just yet. All I knew was that my music career had to be evaluated, and that because of everything that was changing, I didn't know what was going to happen next. So he finally took a meeting with him. Now, by the way, I want to share this is probably instructive. I reached out to him, and he booked a meeting, and then he canceled. He said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I can't make it. Let's reschedule." And I was like, "Okay." And like a month went by. It was when it was the next time we could have it. Like a day before we're gonna have that meeting, he canceled again. Then a month goes by. Right before that meeting, he cancels again. He canceled on me 6 times. Now, I could have in the past, maybe if we were, honest about sometimes how we get, maybe be like a little bummed out. Oh, he's just blowing me off. He doesn't want to meet with me. Right. But now I was like, no, maybe I'll blow him off one time. Maybe I'll cancel on him. Now, of course, I never did that. But I finally get the meeting with him. And he opens the door. It's a beautiful. He had the whole floor of an apartment building on the Upper East Side. And I go in there, and he's on the phone, and he sits me down, and he just points to a newspaper there, and he points at it, and then he points to the phone. And I was like, okay. And the newspaper article was basically about Eric, about this gentleman, and the last piece of beachfront property in Mexico that had been stolen by the Mexican government. And he was on the phone with the State Department trying to sort it all out. So he finally, gets off the phone and says, thanks, blah, blah, shares a little bit about it. And then he goes, "Doug, do you know why I took this meeting with you?" I was like, "No, thank you." He goes, "Took this because I owed it to you. You didn't give up. You were persistent. You kept reaching out." And he goes, I don't have people in my world that don't follow through. And he said, I wasn't doing it on purpose. I wasn't testing you. It just happened the way it happened. But as far as I was concerned, this was a divine experience, and that you've proven that you are, you're worth your word. And I was blown away, and I thought I'd only be there for a couple of minutes. I thought I didn't, all I wanted to learn was about him and who he was and how he got to where he was, because I knew that's where I wanted to get to. And I thought I'd be there for a half hour. I was there for over 4. We spent the whole afternoon together, and he actually invited me out to dinner that night. And then for that reason, I don't recall why we couldn't do it, but I learned so much from him. And that's when he invited me after the first meeting. It's like, hey, well, I got this opportunity. If you're up to it, I'm raising this money for this business, which right now is doing phenomenal. There's some challenges around it for us, but he unfortunately died, and that was a real challenge. But what I learned from him was one of these things he said, and I asked him. I said, "What is abundance to you?" And he looked at me like dead, and by the way, he started with nothing. His father died when he was 7 years old, and by 12 he was working and providing for the family. And at this point, he was probably close to almost a billionaire when I met him. And he goes, "Look, Doug," he goes, "it is your responsibility to make as much money as you morally, ethically, and legally can. Because if you don't have it, you can't help anybody with it." And I was like, whoa. Now, I'm going to share this other tangent because I remember at that point, I was not really in a great relationship with my father and his relationship around money. I always thought rich people were jerks. That challenge was, as soon as I had it, I would get rid of it. So I knew I had to shift that. So I went to my dad. I said, "Dad, what's abundance to you?" And he's like, "Well, what do you mean?" I said, "Well, what's money?" And he goes, "Well, I don't know, all those, when I grew up, he worked for banks, and he did a lot of commercial lending, and he would lend to like Jack Nicklaus and places like guys like that who were building golf courses and condominium projects." And he said, I like golf. And do you know how many jobs it requires to build a golf course and a condominium project? I was like, "No, I don't." He goes, "A lot. Do you know how many homes and places for people to live one of those golf courses can hold? Like, how many families are provided homes for? I was like, no, I hadn't given that a thought either. And he said, look, I like golf, but I was providing opportunity. I was providing opportunity for contractors, for architects, for homes, for people to live, people to maintain the grounds and all that. So I was creating jobs, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'd never even thought of it like that. So what would you like to learn? I needed to learn at that time, this is going back 20 plus years, I needed to learn how to create a positive relationship with abundance, with business. What do you need to learn? And who could you learn it from? Which brings us to lesson number 3. We prime our pump of genius when we share our genius. Or in other words, we awaken our genius even more when we inspire others to help others. So how does that work? Well, what happens is that when we freely give of our expertise, of our wisdom, and this is what the truly successful people know. And actually, let's back it up into some basic finances. Rockefeller used to walk around with a roll of pennies, and he would give them away. He would just see people and he would give them away. And why? Because he knew as he gave it away, it would come back tenfold. It's in the good book. It's in tithing. It's in all these things. So when we give, and it's not just of our money, it's of our most valuable resources, and of that is our wisdom, our experience. So what happens is that when we share our genius, it excites even more opportunity to inspire more. It also, have you ever had this happen? You're hanging out with a friend and you care for them deeply and they're sharing with you a challenge that they've got. And then you're like, ooh, I got an idea. I've been through like something like that. And they offer some suggestions. Or maybe you've done this. You've offered some suggestions. And while you're doing it, you're realizing, oh my gosh, wow, I could apply that to my life. There's a way that this applies actually to me. See, there's this magic that happens when we are able to look at someone else's challenge and we are not emotionally tied to it. But then because we're looking at it from another perspective, we can then see a little bit of us in that challenge. And then we recognize, oh my gosh, when I'm helping others, I'm also helping myself. I'm able to think about things in another way. In NLP, that's called meta. It's looking at it from a meta perspective, from observer, from outside looking in. And what happens is successful people know this, they love offering some problem solving. They love sharing because it also awakens their genius. It awakens their creative thinking. And that's how they became so successful. There's also an old story where sometimes the geniuses, the super successful, recognize that what got them to where they are keeps them where they are. And they need some other input. And they know that one of the ways to get that other input is to give some feedback to others because it allows them to look at problems from a different perspective. And this is a game-changing philosophy. It's next level because they understand they're always processing. When I'm solving another challenge, when I'm offering some wisdom, when I'm sort of critiquing or analyzing and offering some feedback, I'm always running through my brain, whether I realize it or not, consciously or not, how this applies in my life. How did I learn this lesson? Where else does this apply? So that it really does start exponentially expanding the creative juices around our own lives. So when you're thinking in those terms, appreciate and don't deny these super successful people the gift of being able to share their wisdom with you because it helps them. They understand that. So the next question becomes, who can you share your genius with? because that's going to excite your genius. See, sometimes we get bogged down thinking that the only people we should surround ourselves with exclusively are people who are super successful. And I can only learn from the super successful. And yet those super successful, if we're modeling, right? We're modeling, and modeling successful people means that they share their wisdom. So why wait? What are we waiting for? What opportunity are we waiting for? You know more than many, many people, just like many, many people know more than you. But this is how the circle of life goes. You know, if you know 1% more than someone else, you owe it to society, to civilization, to the boomers here, to share your wisdom, even if it's only 1% more. And there's that old story about the truck that goes driving along and gets stuck underneath the bridge. And all the engineers, all the geniuses are coming in and they're looking at the equipment and how can they tear the bridge apart, or how can they take the truck apart to get this truck unlodged from that bridge. Till finally, someone who isn't so charged, isn't so emotionally vested in what's going on, looks at the truck and says, well, why don't you just let some air out of the tires? And then boom. The opportunity to share our wisdom is priceless. If you're here on this call, that means that you have something to offer. You're part of Give to Get, which is about offering value. There's always going to be someone who knows more than you and I. Heck, my mentor is Tony Robbins. I'm not sure there's anybody who's got, more skills and knowledge than Tony, right? But that doesn't mean I go, oh, well, there's already Tony, so I'm not going to help anybody because there's already Tony Robbins. No, because there's plenty of people who I can help because I'm not so far ahead or so big or seemingly inaccessible. And by the way, it's not that anyone is inaccessible. It's just some require more work than others. But here you are in an organization where everyone here is willing to give of their wisdom, of their time, because they know how important it is. And by proxy, it's important that you share your genius. So who can you share your genius with? And then where can you share your genius? Where is that? Well, perhaps you've got your friends, your family. Maybe you can start your own group. Like I'm in part of a few groups. I'm part of a group called Ego, the Elite Gentlemen's Organization, where we meet monthly and we just have a pretty regimented agenda where one person's a timekeeper, one person's the leader, and then each person goes and has 10 minutes to share their successes, what are their challenges, and get some feedback. And they're all extraordinary. They're extraordinary gentlemen. And elite, right? The Extraordinary Elite Gentlemen's Organization. Also, another part of a group that a bunch of guys who get together and just have meat once a month. And it's called Meat, Men Eating. And we'll just dine out and just share together. And these are ways to do it. So these are just some ideas on how you can start growing yourself personally and professionally by understanding that you network your way to wealth. And how do we do it? Well, number one, success leaves clues. Success leaves clues. It's that simple, right? Find someone who's successful and model what they've done. And then also appreciate that truly successful people love to share their wisdom. So go into that with that mindset going, I'm willing to ask some people some questions, be willing to unpack what they've done, and then also be willing to share it. So as you know, you gathered by now, the Real Deal On, that is a way for me and those experts to share their wisdom. I get stuff out of it, they get stuff out of it for sharing. And then, of course, you, the listener, get something out of it. You get some aha moments yourself. So those 3 steps, these 3 secrets, these 3 lessons can change your life forever Should you allow it? Should you be willing to appreciate and understand and accept success leaves clues? Secondly, that truly successful people love to share their wisdom. And last, and certainly not least, that we prime our pump of genius when we share ours. So, with that being said, none of us is smarter than all of us. And I thank you for your time, your attention. If this was helpful, please reach out to us. Please apply these concepts and start getting results and share those results on how you are improving your personal and professional lives. And of course, if you have any questions, any thoughts, any ideas around how we can contribute to each other, how we can take this movement to the next level so that we can touch, move, and inspire globally, we are all ears. So with that being said, I love you for who you are and who you aren't. God bless. And any thoughts there, Bruce?
Absolutely, Doug. As always, Doug, just absolutely brilliant, absolutely spot on, absolutely focused, targeted to every one of the members of Give to Get and what we're wanting to accomplish here, Doug. The movement is growing each and every day, and we just have to get it out more and more. The journey is phenomenal. It's going to be exciting in terms of looking back 2 and 3 and 4 years from now to see where we are, and just looking for you to be a big part of that, Doug, going forward, along with Mauro, along with Terry, and everybody else. So thank you.
Thank you. It's my privilege.